These are all the people from Fernando's hometown. It's been like a football crowd here this weekend more than anything else. Rather appropriate that Roberto Carlos, the great player from Real Madrid, should be here on the grid with us today, because we haven't really sensed what a Spanish crowd is like at a Formula One Grand Prix. It's usually been quite quiet here in the past. Certainly throughout the weekend, Alonso's been pursued around the paddock rather like a Beatle or Elvis Presley. There's a crowd everywhere he goes, lots of kids grabbing him around the neck, wanting a photo opportunity with him. But he's just been so calm throughout it all. He's got very realistic expectations. It does expect a fight with the Ferraris, certainly off the start line, using the fantastic launch control system that the Renault has, but very realistic about what he can do to stem, as Jim said, the red tide, the red barrier. Well, Martin, we're expecting something of a race of tactics today. We heard from Ted and Gary Anderson that 3 stops, certainly with some of the cars, more likely than the 2 stoppers we've seen in the past. But my understanding is that most of the top 10 on the grid are on a 3-stop, except possibly David Coulthard, who may have run a little bit more fuel. If that is the case, they'll be coming in for their first stop around about lap 14-15. But clearly the tactical battle today is the crucial one.
Yes, I think Ferrari are concerned about getting down to the first corner first, despite what they might say. We know how fast the Renaults are off the line, and if they are running a touch lighter, 10-20 kilos less mass to accelerate. But the Ferrari's not running a great deal of wing, has got tremendous straight line speed, so I'd be surprised if anything beats it down there, frankly. I would imagine Ferrari will be on a short 2, which they can swerve into a 3-stopper if they want to and adjust their tactics. I think they've got a cushion, they've got a bit of time in their pocket around this racetrack, and you've got Williams, basically, they're 2 main competitors, Williams and McLaren, a bit on their back foot, down the grid a bit. Raikkonen starting last, of course, which for me is going to be the one of the exciting things of the afternoon.
Well, someone else who's on the back foot down there in the Minardi area is Justin Wilson. Ted Kravitz has news on a problem for Justin, I believe.
Yes, James, it is an electrical problem. They're not sure whether he's going to make the start at all. So unsure are they, actually, that Ron Dennis, who is with Kimi Raikkonen's car, of course, has just been up to Paul Stoddart to make sure if Justin doesn't make the grid, that means Kimi is going to take Justin's spot, of course. There's also a doubt over Verstappen, so a double blow for Minardi. This may help Raikkonen, but only slightly.
Yes, that is a tough blow for Justin Wilson, yet to finish a Grand Prix in this his debut season of Formula One. And as Ted was saying, one of the big stories here this weekend is Kimi Raikkonen, the World Championship leader, 14 points ahead of Michael Schumacher he is in the World Championship, starting from the back of the grid. Made a mistake yesterday in qualifying, as we look at the pole sitter, Michael Schumacher, who's certainly been a breezier and brighter person here this weekend, as you'd expect after the sad weekend he had in Imola. But Raikkonen will be well worth watching, won't he? Hopefully we'll get plenty of onboard stuff from him as he carves his way through the field from the back. He has really nothing to lose, I guess, coming from the back, but points-wise he wants to try and close up as much as he can on Schumacher.
Well, I think he's got, actually, contrary to that, James, I think he's got a lot to lose, mostly its front wing going into the first corner if he's not careful. So he's got to hurry up and wait to a certain extent. You can pass a lot of cars in the first few 100 metres, then you have to pick them off one by one after that. I think if he tries to make too much haste, he'll end up tripping over somebody or catching somebody else's incident. But of course now we may be down to just 19 cars on the grid, so I'm expecting some pretty rapid progress from the young Finn in the early stages.
So a few storylines for you to look out for. That's the Renault there of Fernando Alonso. In fact, Jarno Trulli on the outside of the grid. Watch out for the battle between him and teammate Alonso. They're both on row 2 together, both very keen to beat each other. Jenson Button, you can just see in the background of that shot in the BAR, terrific qualifying performance by him yesterday. He's 5th on the grid and very confident that he should be able to do something from here. Olivier Panis in the Toyota is 6th. We don't know how much fuel he's got in the car. The Williamses have been a bit off colour. Watch out for them. And Coulthard in 8th on the grid. What can he do today to try and get back on terms with teammate Raikkonen in the World Championship? This is the long straight that Martin was talking about. This will be the run down to turn 1. They'll be hitting that corner about 190 miles an hour in the braking zone when they go for real in a lap's time. Beautiful circuit, and just look at all those people.
Our 2 main British contenders today, Button and Coulthard, certainly pretty chipper. They sat having a chat in the McLaren motorhome, and generally both of them seem confident about this afternoon. Some discussion about how well the Bridgestones will hang on. They have a different characteristic. I know we're always talking about tyres, but at the end of the day, that's the final frontier between a driver and the racetrack. And it does seem, once again, the Michelins will fade and then come back, and the Bridgestones will be strong in the beginning and then just gradually decay and edge away. So we could see quite a change in the first 20 laps of this Grand Prix.
Yeah, most of the engineers, drivers, team owners were saying yesterday after qualifying, it's too early to say really which of the two tyre companies has the edge here this weekend. Most of the season we've seen Michelin having a slight edge, except for Imola, where the Bridgestones on the Ferrari and the Jordans and the BARs and the Saubers had a slight performance advantage. But really throughout all of the running this weekend, it's too close to call, and really will be during this race this afternoon we'll get a proper feel for it. On board there with Fernando Alonso, just look at all the crowds on the outside willing him on. He said it's a very special day for me today, and the new generation, well, you're not wrong there. Add in Mark Webber as well, possibly, and the young guys are certainly coming through the Formula One ranks at the moment.
Alonso gave himself a little fright there, I'd imagine, trying to warm his tyres up and to give it an armful of opposite lock to collect it up. Sometimes when you're just playing around like that, you can make the silliest of errors because you've not got the speed and downforce to really connect the car up into the tarmac. And anyway, desperately trying to get some heat into his tyres as they come round. We know it takes a minimum of 30 seconds and sometimes as many as 45 from the front man, the pole man lining up, to the final man getting himself onto the grid slot. Michael Schumacher stationary already. There are no fans on these cars, of course. Michael just checking the brake, the bite point of the clutch there, interestingly and surprisingly. The Ferrari urging forward, and Michael quite clearly not 100% comfortable down there with that system at this time. Just then coming, there's Raikkonen on the back of the grid, James.
Yep, just watching the two Minardis peeling out into their grid slots. Wilson does appear to be in his correct position.
Looking out of the window, Olivier Panis is well out of line. He's overshot his grid garage, but if he's stationary, he'll just get away with it.
Red lights are on. When they go off, we'll be racing in Barcelona. Spanish hearts beat as Alonso launches the car between the two Ferraris. He's attacking Michael Schumacher down to road turn 1. Will he get the inside line? Barrichello goes wide. Schumacher takes the middle line, the path of least resistance, and Barrichello attacks around the outside. They almost touch. Barrichello runs wide. Alonso attacks down the inside. Coulthard and Trulli have made contact. A chaotic start. Oh, that's Kimi Raikkonen. He's whacked someone really hard.
That's got to be a red flag. Surely they'll not move that car easy. No point in trying to push that. He's run into the back of Pitzonia, so they'll have to red flag the session. There's no way they'll clear that car with the wheel pointing in the wrong direction. We'll get a restart. And there then I think we've got another contact, as you said, James, Coulthard, and we believe Trulli further down. I think the two Ferraris did touch. They did a pincer movement.
Safety car boards being hung out here on the pit straight, so we have got a safety car situation. Trulli frustrated, as you can see, throwing his gloves down on the ground. He was in 4th place on the grid, a great opportunity for him today. And Raikkonen, well, you said he had plenty to lose, including his front wing, and you weren't wrong, were you?
No, well, but this is, they should red flag this. I think it's not right to safety. I know safety car theoretically is fine, it's the first line of defence, but with so much carnage around the racetrack and really a non-start in many respects, I believe it would make a lot more sense that just to restart this one and have another go.
Well, Raikkonen's car is right down below us on the start line, Martin. I can't see any cranes or anything that could possibly move it out of the way.
No, and now they're going to go through the debris. There's going to be lots of shards of carbon fibre and other metallic stuff over the racetrack. So cool tyres going through all the bits and pieces. They shouldn't be putting the pack through there. So Alonso then getting a good run. We know that Renault's very quick off the start. Michael Schumacher covering immediately. And then the two Ferraris did a nice little number on Alonso down to the first corner. Alonso probably a little bit overcautious, actually. And I think that's probably because of his tender years. There's no point in losing the nose into the first corner here. But Michael then holding Alonso up, and Rubens coming right down the outside. Coulthard had a tremendous start as well. And look then, so I believe the two Ferraris touch. And somewhere about a third of the way into the pack, you're going to see a Renault and a McLaren getting together. Oh, and there then is the accident. Pizzoni never got away, exactly the same as in Imola. And Raikkonen literally got away and went straight into the back of him, look. An instant accident for Kimi Raikkonen. Barely had released the button for the launch control.
We understand that David Coulthard, who got tangled up with Jarno Trulli on the outside of turn 2, has come into the pits and put new tyres on during the safety car period. We don't know if he put any fuel in the car, but I'm not sure that he would actually, because we believe Coulthard is on a 2-stop strategy, and not necessarily running with lots of fuel isn't necessarily the best thing for here. But there's another generally cool head and struggling to make sense of what happened there, I think.
World Championship leader then. He's dropped the launch control button and gone straight into an accident. And there's 8 meters between grid slots. And obviously he took off with that 8 meters just evaporated and straight into the car in front of him. So Pitsonia then, we've got a breakdown truck. It doesn't know which one to pick up first, the Jag or the McLaren. So Coulthard obviously got running again when he went off to one side. We haven't really seen a replay of that down on the exit of turn 2. Trulli, we know, didn't get any further. So we've got 1 McLaren and 1 Renault remaining in this race. Alonso currently 3rd. Coulthard has rejoined down in 16th.
And he's just ahead of Mark Webber, who seems to have lost 7 places off the start. He did qualify 10th. But also coming into the pits, we've had Heinz-Harald Frenzen's made a visit, and so has Ralph Furman in the Jordan. So we must presume that they've come in to change their tyres, because let's not forget, under the new rules in Formula 1, these guys are having to start the race on the tyres with which they qualified yesterday. So a lot of people would quite like a new set to be going with right now. So we're on a safety car here in Barcelona for a few minutes yet, I think.
Ja, das sind relativ chaotische Bedingungen. Hier nochmal aus Fernandos Sicht. Der kommt super weg.
Back in Barcelona, we've had an incident at the start. Kimi Raikkonen has hit the back of the Jaguar of Antonio Pitsonia, and we've also had David Coulthard and Jarno Trulli tangling up. But, Trulli's out, we believe Coulthard's still in it, and here is a replay of the start from Alonso's perspective.
Yeah, so Alonso in 3rd place on the grid then tries to slot between the 2 Ferraris. Michael Schumacher covering his ground well. He's allowed to move once and then does not swerve back to the outside. Alonso follows him towards turn 1 and then really just brakes a little bit too late when he gets there. Louise.
A drama on the grid for Antonio Pitsonia. Talk us through it.
Well, I had a problem with the launch control system again. You know, we had the same problem in Imola with both cars. And the team has been working really hard on top of that to, you know, solve the problems. And unfortunately, when we got to the grid, the problem was there again, you know, which is a shame really, because it throws our hard work of the weekend. And now we have to improve the system again, and hopefully it doesn't happen again, you know.
Bad luck.
Yeah, it's bad luck. He needed a strong weekend, and non-starting the race was about the last thing he needed. He's had a bit of a non-start to this season and a lot of pressure on Pitzonia, so let's hope he gets another crack at it. A man who did gain massively, surely Mr. Fast Starter of 2003, is Justin Wilson, up to 9th place from the back of the grid. We were concerned he wouldn't even start the Grand Prix, weren't we? There he is, up in P9 at the moment in the Minardi. He obviously just steered his way through all the carnage. I'd really like to see a bit of onboard footage from him, but we don't necessarily have access to the Spanish director here to tell him that, unfortunately. But a great start for Justin Wilson.
Yep, we saw David Coulthard there at the back of the field, so we've still got a McLaren at the back. This time it's DC. So what else happened in that rather chaotic start? Well, Ralf Schumacher got ahead of Jenson Button. Ralf Schumacher did very well there. He's up into 4th place. Jenson's still 5th. Montoya got himself up into 6th. He qualified in 9th place, so it was a terrific start for him. And Villeneuve as well has climbed up from 11th to 7th. So a few of the experienced heads out there steering their way around the problems. Obviously it depends a little bit on where you were relative to the Coulthard-Trulli tangle as to how lucky you were. That's Heidfeld, the second of the 2 Saubers to make a pit visit then. No sign yet of the safety car coming in.
I think any driver that was on a 3-stopper will now be trying to swerve that into a 2. They're saving every lap they do under the safety car, which is 3 completed now. That means they've saved 1.5 laps of fuel so far. So they're saving fuel, and they're changing the whole structure, the whole style of the Grand Prix now this afternoon. This safety car, as you said, James, is going to be out for a little while yet. Although they're now saying they've obviously managed to, well, hopefully sweep up the pit straight. I don't know, I haven't seen any men out there with brushes, so that rather surprisingly, safety car in at the end of this lap, and that news has now got to Rubens Barrichello and the rest of them, because they're just beginning now to squirt the throttle and try and generate some heat back into those tyres.
We've been under the safety car for nearly 5 laps now, so they're obviously happy that the track is clear.
Yeah, they picked the safety car by the end of the first lap, and they're about to complete lap 5. So here we go then, anytime soon. The tyres tend to run about 18 psi, 18 to 20, probably 20 at the front, 18 in the rear, and they might be down as low as 11 or 12 psi now that the cars have been cruising around. So the engine and gearbox will be nice and cool. They'll be on low revs, saving fuel, but everything else unfortunately is cool and low pressure too, and that's why the drivers are urgently just trying to generate any heat, any sign of life in those tyres that they can.
It's the 3rd race of the season. Races the championship only 5 races old. 3rd race of the season that has been affected now by a safety car. It certainly is always something you've got to factor in when you're planning your strategy for a Grand Prix. Michael Schumacher bunches the pack. He's ahead of Barrichello, Alonso 3rd. 4th Ralf Schumacher, 5th Button. He starts to pick up the throttle now. Out of the last few corners, Barrichello, you can see, not warming the tyres at this time. He's struggling to keep hold of the front of the Ferrari because Schumacher has gone. You're not allowed to overtake until you cross the start-finish line, and look at the lead that Michael Schumacher has given himself. Alonso trying to attack Barrichello, but he won't be able to live with the straight-line speed of the Ferrari, and we're racing again at Barcelona.
Yes, Michael caught them all napping a bit there, particularly Rubens. Rubens was desperately trying to find some grip, and there we see Montoya locking his wheels, somehow keeping it all together to make a pass on Jenson Button. That was for 5th place, so Montoya getting brave early.
Huge lunge there from Juan Montoya from 6th place up into 5th. I don't think Jenson saw him coming, and he's through. So a great move by Montoya.
And Montoya did well not to run wide there, James. He just kept cadence braking somehow. No ABS on these cars, of course, so he just somehow had to get into that corner, and the tyres would have been quite cold. Good driving there. That's the instinctive brilliance, I think, of Montoya. He understands this sort of level of grip. Not sure he always gets his car set up as well as it needs to be set up, but he certainly can drive whatever's underneath him.
He's great at improvising, isn't he, Juan Montoya? Give him a situation, he'll always find some sort of solution. It usually involves bravery and exceptional amounts of car control.
And of course, from his racing in America, where they're always under yellow flag situations, he knows how to get on it nice and early.
Certainly does. Michael Schumacher leading then. Barrichello seems to have pegged the gap a little bit to his teammate. There you can see the gap now between Montoya and Button going through frame. Villeneuve will be laughing to see the back of Button's rear wing so soon in the Grand Prix. I think he thought it would take him a lot longer to get on terms with his teammate. And really Villeneuve not a match for Button this weekend so far, but perhaps in the race he's Well, will they be able to do something a little bit more there? You can see the rest of the places. Wilson still holding on to 9th place ahead of the Jordan of Giancarlo Fisichella. Panis has lost a lot of ground, hasn't he? He's down to 11th place, hasn't made a visit to the pits, so obviously he was a victim of that incident between Trulli and Coulthard at the start of the race.
Coulthard up to 14th, then he's taken Frentzen and Furman on the first lap of the restart, as it were, after the safety cars come in. So they're on lap 7 now, and Michael Schumacher less than a second ahead of his teammate. Rubens giving it plenty as well. And Rubens seemed very happy on the start line in terms of, said, yeah, I've got a very good strategy. And then he said, well, Michael too, but I just sense Ruben feels he's in as good a shape as anybody out there this afternoon, including his teammate, and already then the fastest man on the track.
Because he said the same thing to you 12 months ago here and then failed to get off the start line, do you remember? I'm in great shape here, he said, and then didn't go even 1 yard at the start.
Wasn't his fault on that occasion. No. And Alonso hanging on in there, isn't he?
Yeah, no doubt about that. Just 0.7 of a second shy of Rubens Barrichello. You can see the gap for yourself. Just 1.5 seconds back to, 2 seconds now it is, back to Michael Schumacher down this long straight. See how the Ferrari disappears over the horizon. It must be so frustrating for Alonso. The Renault giving up as much as 40, possibly 50 horsepower maybe to the Ferrari.
Well, he's certainly making a good fist of it at the moment, and Louise is with his teammate Jarno Trulli.
Jarno, all that promise and hard work over the weekend out of the window.
Yes, again, unfortunately the second corner where I was following everybody else, I was in the queue. I saw David coming across a double speed of Howard, and he just cut all the corner. He didn't realize how close we were, and he just hit my car in the front, and that was it.
A racing incident, would you call it?
It's always a racing incident, but I think it's something that you can avoid if you're not too optimistic and you want to make up a position at the first 2 corners from the outside line. I think he could avoid it.
Thanks, Jarno.
Yes, and Trulli and Coulthard have tripped over each other on a few occasions, not least Silverstone a couple of years ago, but I don't know, you've got to make hay while the sun shines, and I know Coulthard obviously feels he's got to somehow keep in touch with those Ferraris, but it didn't work out for him either. He's still back down there in 14th place, currently following Webber in the Jaguar, who's 13th, of course. The Ferraris then, Michael is on a quick lap now. He does a 20.4, Rubens does a 20.7. Alonso, though, a 20.6. So they're quite even Stevens, and also Ralf Schumacher too matching the leaders. So top 4 then on a very similar lap speed.
Yes, very interesting that, isn't it? Obviously, one of the thoughts about this new Ferrari, it's not done an awful lot of race distances. Ferrari needed to bring it here because they needed that extra fillip of speed, that extra jump in performance, with McLaren having the dominant position in both championships. So clearly the pressure was on Ferrari to do something, to take a step forward. Having said that, although they tested it quite a lot last week at Mugello, did 3 race distances with it, they're still not 100% sure about its reliability. Look at this though, Coulthard coming past Verstappen. Verstappen passing on the left-hand side there, you can see, and he's fighting his way up through the field, up into 12th place now.
Yeah, that was kind of Premier League versus Division 1 there. Verstappen hanging it out around the outside, desperately trying to stay on the racetrack, and Coulthard just sweeping through comfortably, able to take an even tighter line and still keep his foot on the throttle. So the McLaren looking very well balanced, it has to be said.
Yep, and we do believe that Coulthard is carrying more fuel than the front runners. We think he's on a too-soft strategy. Barrichello's in trouble though. Something's gone wrong with Rubens Barrichello. Has he made a mistake? There's something wrong with the car because Alonso is right with him, very, very close to the back of that Ferrari. Hopefully we'll get a shot of it in a second. He seems to have recovered, but whatever happened there allowed Alonso to close right up on the back of Rubens.
I think it was a mistake, James. He was 4/10 slower than his teammate in the final sector, so Rubens off screen made a small error that brought Alonso right back into the action again.
Just looking at that Coulthard-Trulli incident, you have to wonder how it happened, given that Trulli was 4th on the grid and Coulthard was 8th. The fact that they were in the same piece of tarmac into that corner in itself is quite interesting, isn't it?
It is indeed, but Jarno says I was in a queue when Coulthard came around the outside of me. Don't know, we haven't really seen a good camera angle, I'm afraid, to see really if anybody was to blame, and if so, who was to blame of the Coulthard-Trulli thing. But unfortunately it put Trulli out of the Grand Prix, and Coulthard a long way down the field, up to P13 now, still following Webber, but as we saw for ourselves, having now passed Verstappen.
Well, we saw Barrichello making some kind of mistake which allowed Alonso to close up with him. And you have to say that in the early stage of this race, that Ferrari doesn't actually look all that comfortable. It seems to be jumping about a little bit on him, and he's giving away time to Alonso somewhere in this section of the lap, isn't he?
getting into that phase again where the Michelins are coming back, but I wouldn't be at all surprised to see the Ferraris effectively two-stopping now and Alonso stopping quite a bit earlier. The man that's surprising me is Ralf Schumacher. You can just see him at the back there every so often. Here he comes now in P4. He's moving along very nicely.
Yep, his lap time's more or less the same as Rubens Barrichello's. Not quite as quick as Michael Schumacher, who's just edging away now ever so slightly from Barrichello. 2.4 the margin between Michael Schumacher and Barrichello, and another 7/10 back to Alonso. On board here with Cristiano De Mata in the Toyota. De Mata in 8th place, and Ted has some news for us.
Just untangling David Coulthard's strategy, James. He was due to stop on about lap 17 or 18. He only took a splash of fuel. It's just going to stretch out that first stop to about 25, 26. I think he also had a puncture on those tyres. The Michelin guys were probing his tyres and lifting up a flap of rubber, so I think that might have been another reason why he had to come in.
Ted, any indication that the car was damaged? Because Martin was saying he saw it, he thought it lifted up into the air by Trulli's car.
Well, no indication. As I say, I think the only indication was indeed that the puncture had occurred on the rear tyres. I didn't see any bodywork flapping anywhere, so no, I think he's all right for the moment.
Well, he was definitely all four wheels off the deck at one point, I do know that for sure, despite only one camera angle, but hopefully then the strakes and the various aerodynamic appendages hanging underneath these Formula One cars has not been damaged on Coulthard's guys. Lapping in the 1:22.5s, that's 1.8 off the pace, but we do know he's carrying a lot of fuel. I think he'll go a little bit further than I thought. I think he was heading for more than 20 laps before he stopped, so let's wait and see.
That was Panis you just saw closing in on the back of Fisichella with Justin Wilson in a Minardi just ahead of them. That's the battle for 9th, 10th and 11th places, and at the moment, well, Justin Wilson really matching the Jordan and the Toyota for lap time, so we're not seeing much of it, but it's a terrific drive so far by Justin Wilson.
Yes, and there's a good scrap there. So Fisichella, Panis, now Webber and Coulthard are virtually lying astern for 10, 11, 12 and 13, with Webber and Coulthard much faster, with much faster cars underneath them. So some good fights going on all the way down the pack, actually.
And once again, look how close Alonso's getting to the back of Barrichello. Either Barrichello's playing with him, or possibly more likely, he's not able to get away from him. Is he carrying more fuel? It's a distinct possibility, but whatever happens, Alonso is driving really very well again, isn't he?
There's one man who knows exactly what fuel they're carrying, or somebody else, because they're all weighed as they're in Parc Fermé. So if you take away the driver's weight and the minimum weight of the car, including the driver's 605 kilograms in qualifying, then it's very easy for somebody to know exactly the fuel level that they're running. But I haven't managed to tap my way into that list at the moment. But that's the golden piece of paper you need if you want to look terribly smart in the commentary. But it's, you know, let's wait and see. Let's see how it shakes out, because it's a little bit upside down anyway, because they've saved quite a lot of fuel behind the safety car.
Yes, we could do with one of those teenage hackers, really, to get into the mainframe of Joe Bauer, the technical delegate of the FIA, to let us know how much fuel there is on board the cars. That's the order then, top 7 at the moment. We're working lap 13 here in Barcelona.
Andere Taktik, an einer anderen Stelle seinen eigenen Rhythmus fahren kann. Allerdings verliert
genau der Punkt, auf den beide Reifenpartner so viel Entwicklungsfokus gelegt haben.
Lap 15 of this 65-lap Spanish Grand Prix at a record sellout Barcelona. This is on board with Fernando Alonso chasing down the second-place car of Rubens Barrichello. This is the BAR pit where they are expecting Jenson Button in any moment now. We cut back, though, to Alonso, driving splendidly here in front of his adoring Spanish fans. There's Button into the pits from 5th place, dropped him down already to 7th. And where's he going to filter back in again?
And the Bridgestone's not working too well for Button, and if he felt the need to come in, somebody else ready for a stop there too. Wilson still holding his own. Ted.
Jacques Villeneuve is out of the race. Came in with the engine dead, not working at all. It was smoking, black smoke from the back of the car. They tried to get it going, but they couldn't. Villeneuve, absolutely furious, threw down his helmet. He's out for the 2nd race in a row.
Sad news for Villeneuve then. Verstappen is pitting this time, so that means Wilson is not. Wilson definitely holding his own in that pack. I think probably he'll be 3 stopping, as is his teammate, of course. He's in now. But I'll tell you something, James. Up at the sharp end, the Ferrari's not handling well. It's not going well, and there's going to be a lot of people on the pit wall very pleased to see Michael struggling to get his car into the corners sometimes. Don't know why, but that car is not handling anything like as well as I thought it would.
Well, as we found out from Martin's grid walk, they're not allowed to touch the car. Chris Dyer, Michael Schumacher's race engineer, telling us that it's really a Parc Fermé situation and they can't do anything to the car to try and improve the handling. So they're stuck with what they qualified with. There you can see Webber getting very close to the back of Fisichella. There's Justin Wilson doing a splendid job. The young man from Sheffield in his 1st year of Grand Prix racing, a winner previously of the European Formula 3000 Championship, the only British driver ever to win that title, and earning quite rightly his place in Formula 1 and doing a super job today here in Barcelona. This is on board with Coulthard in 11th, and he's got Webber in front of him, Fisichella in front of that. This is his scrap with Wilson at the head.
This is bad news for Coulthard. He's doing 124s when he needs to be doing 121s. Caught up in the dirty air of 3 cars. And Wilson now up into P8, so he's in a point-paying position after Button made his pit stop. Justin Wilson having a great afternoon so far. But look, Alonso able to keep Barrichello well within his sights. And Michael Schumacher was only a further 3 seconds down the road. Ralf Schumacher on the similarly Michelin-shod Williams, and I believe the Williams and McLaren have a harder tyre than the Renault of Alonso. So keep an eye out. So this is not an easy win for Ferrari at all this afternoon.
No, there's a very, very long way to go in this 65-lap Grand Prix, because certainly Rubens Barrichello looks uncomfortable. Look how much he pulls out, though, on the straight. Yesterday, we're told in qualifying, the Ferrari was 10 miles an hour faster down the main straight than the Renault. And this new Ferrari, it's many things. It's extremely beautiful. It's very light. But one thing it certainly is very slippery in a straight line. 325 kilometers an hour was the straight line speed, just a whisker over 200 miles an hour down the main straight for Ferrari.
Panis pits for Toyota. Wilson pits for Minardi. They were 7th and 8th. Fisichella stays out, as does Webber and Coulthard. So that train still remains in place. Michael Schumacher leads by 3.6 seconds now. There then is the Toyota of Panis. He pitted on lap 17, and away he goes. A solid stop then for the Toyota team. Panis back into the fight.
Ralf Schumacher still going very well, lapping faster than the 2 cars in front of him, Barrichello and Alonso. I wonder if Barrichello is holding Alonso up at all, because certainly he seems very close to the back of him. This is the Renault team bringing Alonso in. Maybe they feel that Barrichello is holding him, but because certainly what is happening is that Ralf Schumacher there in the back of your screens is closing up on the pair of them. Alonso into the pits then for his first stop. This is lap 17.
To the mighty relief of Rubens Barrichello, I'd imagine. He'll have been hoping that Renault would be pitting earlier than him. We'll see if it's significantly earlier. So Ralf Schumacher takes over 3rd. We're on board with Alonso then as he cruises down the pit lane. 22 men go to work on his car. He wants to be gone in less than 8 seconds if he can. Holding the steering wheel, left foot on the brake, and away he goes. Perfect.
That was like clockwork, wasn't it? You can see his hands just jiggling slightly as they put the wheels on. You've got to hold the wheel pretty tight, I should think, at a time like that, haven't you?
Yeah, you do. You hang on to it very tight if you can, and just gently with your foot on the brake pedal, so when they spin the wheel nuts up, it doesn't turn the wheel and be thinking about getting into gear.
And what goes through your mind when you're sitting there 6-7 seconds?
Absolutely nothing. If you just breathe calmly, do what you've got to do. They're simple tasks a 6-year-old can do sitting in the car. You just got to make sure you do them, frankly.
Remember to put it in gear as well. And Coulthard's off the track. The second McLaren out of the race from the looks of things, unless he's able to somehow get it going. I don't think he is.
No way from there. There's no way I'll get that out of there.
Engine's still running.
Yeah, but it's beached, the under tray. And so what's this then? This is a touch with Jenson Button.
No.
And off goes Coulthard. He turned in. Button was on the inside of him. He's only just into the gravel, but you'll never drive it out of there because the under tray just sits on the gravel and the tyres can't find any bite at all.
Big frustration for the second place driver in the World Championship at the moment. Will it still be the same story at the end of the afternoon? Quite possibly not the form that Michael Schumacher's in. Ralf Schumacher in for a stop. That's interesting. We thought he might be carrying a little bit more fuel, but he certainly is now. That's quite a bit of gas that's gone into that car. And I think there'll be some words tonight in the caravan park because Button and Coulthard and Villeneuve all have luxury motorhomes that they sleep in at the racetrack. They don't bother with hotels anymore. They all sleep in their parallel motorhomes, and they're neighbours, so there'll be a few words I think there. Ferrari ready for one of their 2 cars. We've got wave yellow flags here down at this corner, and so no one's allowed to overtake here.
Alonso's had some brilliant out sections, and well, it's a bit touch and go, that one. You'd have to say David probably thought he had the line over Jenson there. I think they would both argue their case. Jenson will be saying he turned in on me. DC will be saying, hey, look, I easily had 3/4 a car ahead of you as he went into the corner, but maybe Button just couldn't slow it down. It's good news to see the Ferraris coming in. I don't really want to see them go another 6 or 7 laps without having to need fuel, because this means the race is very much still on, James. The Ferrari were carrying a similar fuel level, so he pits then. Michael Schumacher, the race leader, pits at the end of lap 19.
Yeah, and if we're right about the fact they weren't particularly happy on the handling, this is where they can actually do something about it if they want to. There's Jenson Button, who had some front wing damage as a result of that collision with David Coulthard. That's going to drop him down. He's currently 9th, hoping not to drop any further down the order. Race leader, or was the race leader before he came in, Michael Schumacher, going back out again. Rubens Barrichello at the moment is the race leader, but he is expected in shortly. Well, we heard him say on the grid that he felt pretty good about his strategy. Clearly that meant he was doing something different from Michael Schumacher. And is the thing that he's doing different carrying more fuel, I wonder? Clearly a little bit more, at least. And Louise has got news on Jenson Button.
Yes, he obviously sustained some damage to his car in that incident. He's just been into the pits, changed the tyres, but the team have also had to change the whole front wing assembly, put a brand new nose on to get him around that problem.
Well, bad news for Jenson, so he lost out too then. So our 2 top Brits of the day, unfortunately tripping over each other and spoiling each other's day. As you said, James, they sleep in motorhomes next door to each other, and I sat with a pair of them having a bite of lunch, so I don't know if that will sour that relationship. It certainly doesn't help, as the race leader, then the current race leader, Barrichello, pits too. And this is quite crucial. He had a 3-second deficit to Michael Schumacher. Alonso was right on his tail, and Alonso's been travelling very quickly in these last few laps. I think Barrichello will still rejoin second, but I don't know for sure.
Yes, it's going to be very interesting to see what happens here. Barrichello had a couple of laps with very low fuel in which to do something. Has he got out in front of Fernando Alonso? Michael Schumacher goes shooting down the pit straight, so he's retaken the lead. Just waiting for Alonso now. There he is.
And Alonso comfortably then up into second place. Good for him. So those hot laps he's been doing. Alonso pulled 2 red sectors, the 2 fastest that any man has driven this afternoon so far on his out lap from his pit stop, I noticed, and it's made the difference. He's leapfrogged up into second place, the place he threatened to take right from corner 1.
That is class. Class driving, no doubt about it. Fantastic by Fernando Alonso. Once again, staking his claim amongst the big names of Formula 1. Another guy who's benefited from that early round of pit stops was Montoya, who's up into 5th place. So Michael Schumacher leading, Alonso second, Barrichello is third, Ralf Schumacher, Montoya, Fisichella hasn't stopped yet. De Mata has made a pit stop, he's 7th. Furman going quite strongly this afternoon in the second, Jordan in 8th place. Frentzen and Panis rounding out the top 10 at the moment. We've got Coulthard, Villeneuve, Trulli, Pitsonia and Raikkonen, the retirements. This is lap 21.
Louise is with Kimi Raikkonen.
Kimi, presumably there was nothing you could do to avoid that stalled car on the grid.
No, I got good start and I tried to go between the two main artists, but then once I got just like the half side of the Wilson, and he just turned left, and I needed to turn right because I didn't have anywhere else to go, and there was a car on stop behind him, and I didn't have any time to try to even avoid him.
I think when he sees a replay of that, he'll be thinking, why did I go right when they were all clearly swerving left to miss something? But it's dead easy from up here in the gods in the top of the grandstands, but when you're sitting with your backside scraping down the ground, you really can't see any further than the rear wing in front of you. The cars go from 0 to 100 miles an hour, break down to 0 again in a little over 5 seconds. So, you know, that's the kind of acceleration you got underneath you, and it clearly caught Raikkonen out. But I still think he'll learn a big lesson when he sees it on the replay.
Taken in conjunction with the mistake he made yesterday in the important qualifying session, sum up the weekend for Raikkonen then. World Championship leader, very strong up to this point, on the podium every race, but he hasn't really been on it this weekend, has he?
No, Edge, it always shows there's a knock-on effect. If you make mistakes or you have a big mechanical failure early on in the weekend, it compromises you. And of course, you know, Raikkonen wouldn't have tripped over a back marker had he not have made a mistake. But hey, it's easy, isn't it? You're on a single lap qualifying, you miss a braking point. But you have to say, this young man, Alonso, he's the one not making the mistakes. He's been good at every kind of racetrack. Looking forward to seeing him in Monaco. But he's been good in the wet, the dry. He's consistently been a contender, has Alonso, and he's got a calm head here this afternoon too.
Yeah, he's been on the podium twice already, Malaysia and Brazil. Although he didn't actually stand on the podium in Brazil because he had the accident which brought that race to a close, so he was in the back of an ambulance while the podium ceremony was going on. But at the moment, certainly he said yesterday after qualifying that the podium was the target. Wasn't really sure how much he would be able to do about this guy here, Michael Schumacher, in the new 2003 Ferrari. But well, at the moment, any ideas that Ferrari was sandbagging or taking it easy have been clearly dispelled, because Barrichello is behind Alonso on the racetrack and Michael Schumacher is only 2.5 seconds ahead of him. Fisichella into the pits from 7th place. Problem with the fuel hose, you can see either getting it on or getting it off. I think getting on, actually. Yep, fuel going in now, 22, 23, long stop for the winner of the Brazilian Grand Prix. Huge frustration there.
Yes, indeed. Another man who's going very well is D'Amata in the Toyota, up into 6th place. He's stopped once already, but D'Amata, I think, has also done a great job. He's not in the Friday morning test group, so these tracks are often a bit of a surprise to him. Not here, of course, in Barcelona, where they do a lot of testing. So D'Amata doing a great job in 6th. Montoya, a very quiet afternoon in 5th. Ralf Schumacher hasn't been as quick in this 2nd sector of the Grand Prix, as he certainly hasn't threatened those leading 3 as he was beginning to do at the end of the first stint. Michael Schumacher beginning now to ease quite quickly away from Alonso in 2nd place. Barrichello 2 seconds behind Alonso.
On board with Panis. That's Ralph Furman in front of us. This is the battle for 8th place. The back of the Jordan bouncing around all over the place as Panis looks at where he might have a bit of a go at this Jordan. Powered this year, of course, by the Ford engine. And really a very good engine in the back of that Jordan, Ford Cosworth engine, but at the moment it seems that the Toyota is hauling him in down the straight. Is he close enough to have a go? No. To turn 1. Good cat and mouse battle, this.
It is. Panis needs to be closer on the exit of the last turn. He's certainly got the faster car down the straight, but you certainly have to give up. Oh, and Ralph put himself very wide out into the marbles on the outside of turn 3, and Panis then taking a comfortable pass.
Bit of a gift there from Ralph Furman. Running wide, and well, you can see already the gap. Objects in the mirrors may be closer than they appear, it says on many cars at the moment. That Jordan seems to be disappearing in the mirrors of Panis. Behind them on the racetrack is the Sauber of Frentzen and Heidfeld, also 9th and 10th, the 2 Saubers, trying to salvage something from what's been a pretty ordinary weekend for them. Pretty unimpressive throughout practice, but just beginning to put a bit of a threat together now. This is lap 25 of this 65-lap Grand Prix. Michael Schumacher 4.2 seconds ahead of Alonso, and you're going to see Jenson Button, there he is, about to be lapped by Alonso. Button down there because he had that contact with David Coulthard, and his teammate Jacques Villeneuve has retired from this race. He's talking now to Louise.
That's right, James. Jacques, I think your frustrations at that failure were evident from your body language.
Yeah, it's very frustrating because we've been working hard, preparing hard, doing a lot of testing, and the car is competitive. And then we decided in qualifying to qualify with a lot of fuel, so we end up looking stupid in quali because we're slower than Jensen is, and just because we have a better strategy, and then we can't even use it because the car breaks down. So, you know, it's been like that race after race, and it's becoming a little bit difficult.
You've just been in Hadashar. Have you cooled down now?
No, not really. It's really hard to accept.
Thanks, Jack.
We saw Jacques shaking his head yesterday after his qualifying lap and feeling the need there to alert the world via ITV that, hey, I had more fuel on board than Jensen. That's why he was ahead of me yesterday. So a lot of frustration, a lot of pressure there for Jacques Villeneuve. But, you know, you've got to sympathise if you just can't get the things away from the line. Thank goodness they're getting rid of launch control next year. It seems to have been cause of too many problems in Formula One.
Yes, of course, everybody in Canada following Villeneuve's fortunes with us here via the TSN network, so they will have been as disappointed as Jacques himself when once again he failed to get into the points at a Grand Prix this season. Not really been going his way this year. Hopefully he can turn it around in Austria in a couple of weeks' time. So this is lap 26. Michael Schumacher is leading by only 4.8 seconds from Alonso. You can see that all the front runners have made one stop. Quite a few interesting stories here, aren't there? Furman up in the top 9. Panis to match the two Toyotas. Can they get some points this afternoon? Ralf Schumacher, can he do something? And how long will Alonso stay behind Michael Schumacher? Can he do anything about it? Lots to play for still here.
Furman jetzt auch drin. Sehe ich jetzt richtig, aber Furman war natürlich erst gerade drin, der hat noch die frischen Reifen, während Fisichella.
Approaching half distance in the Spanish Grand Prix at Barcelona, Fernando Alonso in the Renault has come across this. 2 Jordans, 2 Minardis, all back markers, all of them needing to be overtaken. That's Michael Schumacher, the race leader, who's already done so. And Alonso cannot afford to lose too much time here because these guys are all battling each other for position. And Alonso is desperately trying to keep in touch with Michael Schumacher. He was only just over 4 seconds behind him at the end of the previous lap. Let's see how much he's lost when he crosses the start-finish line this time, just with this traffic.
And will Ralf Furman punish Fisichella for being overly kind to Alonso? I think indeed he has. And Fisichella just leapt out of the way of Alonso, and Ralf Furman says, I'll have a bit of that, thank you. Now, Rubens Barrichello's got the Noah's Ark scrap to get past 2 of them. The 2 Minardis and then the 2 Jordans, and Alonso carving his way nicely through the traffic, inevitably helped by the waved blue flags. Louise is with David Coulthard.
David, all sorts of argy-bargy going on in that race. First of all, tell us what happened with Jensen.
Well, I can only presume he was coming out the pits because he certainly wasn't in my mirrors as I came down the straight. You know, just one of those things, I guess. You know, he was on the inside trying to keep his corner. I don't know, it's a bit bizarre actually, because I wasn't aware that he was there. So I have to, on that basis, give him the benefit of the doubt.
Were you aware that Jarno was there in the earlier incident?
Yeah, I knew it was all going to be a bit tight through there. It got a bit messy because the Ferraris got wide, but I just tried to pick my way through. And all you can do in those situations is make sure you're not the guy who runs into someone. You know, I made that mistake a few years ago when you remember we didn't get off the grid. I started last, passed a lot of people, and then got sort of so close to the car in front that when Rinaldi hit the back of me, it pushed me into the car. So you just have to, you know, as Martin will know, you just have to make sure you've got plenty of room to the car in front and hope that someone doesn't hit you. But I'm going to have a little dig and say that it's not a surprise that Jarno runs into someone. You know, it all gets a bit Italian for him when he gets into close quarter racing.
Thanks, David.
Giving us a comment, we really haven't seen a good angle of that, but that's a fascinating one. Obviously, Button coming out of the pits, and the mirrors, when you look in your mirrors in these cars, all you can really see is just over your rear wheels. So if somebody is coming in from an angle, Jensen obviously saw David, decided he wanted to try and beat him down there, and DC clearly had no idea the BAR was there at all, because he's come from a different part of the racetrack completely. The pit lane exit goes all the way down the right-hand side and feeds you right into the heart, right into the apex of the corner. Coulthard turns in, and much to his great surprise, with the sounds of it, there's Jensen Button really trying to keep his place. So, as I say, I think they'll both feel that they were unlucky in that one.
D'Amato then pitting from 6th place. That'll drop him down a little bit. While we were listening to David Coulthard, there was a very interesting scrap going on between the Minardis and the Jordan. And Ralph Furman, who's been having quite a good afternoon here, is ahead of his teammate, is now ahead of the first of those two Minardis. So he's start chasing after Mark Webber now in the Jaguar. And on the quiet, the two Brits, Wilson and Furman, the two back markers making their debut this year, are having a really, really solid afternoon here. Now, to answer the question I was asking before, how much time will Alonso lose through that crowd of back markers? The answer is about 2.5 seconds. So it was a costly period for Fernando Alonso. He's now 7.1 behind Michael Schumacher at the beginning of lap 31.
The only good news is he was 0.3 faster as soon as he did get clear than Michael, so he's got to haul that back in now if he wants a chance to win this Grand Prix. He's got a great chance of being in on the podium, because Ralf Schumacher is some 11 seconds behind Alonso at the moment. Ralf not been good and travelling quite slowly, as is Montoya in this part of the race. Don't know what's going on with those Williams. They're not hooked up after their first pit stop at all.
No, it's interesting, isn't it? They've obviously put some different tyres on. They're obviously not getting the balance right. This car, I sense, Martin, is really critical. When it's all hooked up and all the bits are pointing in the right direction, the thing flies like it did on Friday morning. But little things change it and just blow it off course, and all of a sudden it's dog slow. Once again now, a second and a half a lap they're giving away to Alonso, Barrichello and Michael Schumacher.
Yeah, it's curious, really curious of Williams' performance, and I'm sure they're scratching their heads far more than we are, because I'm sure they expected to be right in the hunt. There'll be a few people on there. I mean, McLaren leading the World Championship as constructors, not going to score any points today, both their cars out of the race. Ferrari running first and third at this time. But I think they'll still be moderately pleased that this new all-singing, all-shouting 2003 car isn't absolutely leagues ahead of everything else, as we saw with the 2002 car.
It's a curious one, isn't it? Because certainly the rumours coming out from the testing that Ferrari were doing was that the car was up to 3/4 of a second a lap faster than the truly remarkable 2002 car. And certainly many of the team owners here, the rival team owners, suggesting that Ferrari could quite easily have done the lap times they've done this weekend with that old 2002 car and had the security reliability in their pocket. But yeah, there'll be a few questions asked, I think, about this. We believe that the Ferrari can go faster, but today, for whatever reason, it's just not able to get away from the fast-moving Spaniard Fernando Alonso in second place. Now closing Michael Schumacher down. Took half a second out of him that lap.
Yes, we heard, I couldn't quite understand it. I didn't quite agree with it actually yesterday, but we had Ron Dennis, Juan Pablo Montoya all saying, hey, I'm not that impressed with the Ferrari's pace, although they were on the front of the grid. and it's proving to be the case, I think, this afternoon. Alonso then, as you say, the lead down to 6.4 seconds, the gap to Michael Schumacher, and he's now 4.8 ahead of Rubens Barrichello, so great job there from the young Spaniard.
Yes, I can imagine McLaren being quite encouraged because they've got their own new car due to come out not before the Canadian Grand Prix, which is round 8 of this championship, not after round 11, which is Silverstone, and they believe that car really is a huge step forward, so they'll be testing it frantically and wanting to bring it as quickly as possible, because if this is the pace of the new Ferrari, then the championship is well and truly wide open. Ted, what can you tell us?
James, Ferrari going to have to think really seriously about bringing Michael Schumacher in anytime soon. Alonso's taking half a second out of him. He's also dropping half a second from Barrichello. I think the Bridgestone tyres on the Ferrari are going off. They're going to have to bring Michael in sooner rather than later.
Yes, but that's what we expected. We expected the decay of the tyres to be a gentle slope down on the Bridgestones, although Michael was 0.2 faster on that lap that has just gone, so he has got enough speed underneath him, but Alonso's definitely there threatening, no question about it.
He is, and Ted, talking about the Bridgestone tyres, which Ferrari are using, also using them are Jordan and Sauber. Just looking at the top 10 at the moment, really the only cars in the top 10 using the Bridgestones are the 2 Ferraris, 1st and 3rd, and then Heidfeld 9th and Frentzen 10th, but they're lapping 3.5 seconds a lap slower than the race leaders. So does this indicate to you that the Michelins are having all the fun at the moment?
Well, I think it's traditional, isn't it? We've seen them just coming on, getting better as they wear down, as they get rid of those grooves. But Michael then still another 0.2, the lead up to 6.7. He's had to get the hammer down when Alonso started taking big bites out of his lead. Barrichello slipping further and further behind. That is Nick Heidfeld in the pits. He was 9th, the leading Sauber, 9th and 10th they're running. The Toyota's looking good in 6th and 7th. Williams steady in 4th and 5th by their standards anyway, but it's all about the top 3, James.
Yep, Jenson Button there we saw on the fight back after the contact with David Coulthard a little earlier on. He is now up into 12th place. He's a lap down on the race leaders, and he's got the Furman, Frentzen, Heidfeld battle just a little way up the road from him, and well, once again, Jenson hoping for some points here this afternoon, and luck has not been on his side. That's the margin at the moment then, at the lead of this Grand Prix. Michael Schumacher to Fernando Alonso, the back marker Frentzen there, and then you can see 6 seconds back to Rubens Barrichello. They're lapping almost identical times, the two at the front. Rubens is 6 or 7 tenths of a second a lap slower than Alonso and Michael Schumacher, so it really does appear to be between the two of them. And it's quite a nice story actually, Martin, because they had the same #1 mechanic. The guy looking after Alonso now, Kenny Kirkhammer, I believe you worked with at Benetton. He worked with Michael Schumacher when he was a young guy at the Benetton team, and so quite a bit of history there.
Yeah, Benetton became Renault, of course. It's one of the same, based in Oxfordshire. So Alonso then, he's nibbled 0.3 back out of the lead, down to 6.4 now. So it's really punch and counter punch between Michael Schumacher and Fernando Alonso. Barrichello slipping back still, relentlessly slipping back, as is Ralf Schumacher. Montoya's 5th, Panis 6th, Tamata 7th, Webber 8th, Frentzen and Furman and Ferrari mechanics out in the pit lane. Michael stopped first before on lap 19, the end of lap 19, so we would assume they stopped for about the same amount of time. We would assume this is for the leader, Michael Schumacher. Turns 10 then, he's got 11, 12 and 13. He won't take 13, he'll come in, just tuck into the pit lane before the fast final corner. We're on board with him then. This is the downhill, slightly off camber, turn 12. Does he go in the pit lane? Indeed he does. That's something you practice hard here. You don't want to get it wrong. There's just a concrete wall on the outside. Bring the speed down by that white line now. You must be down to the speed limiter, Ted.
Yes, Michael Schumacher into the pits. He's looking for about 7.7 seconds. He'll be taking on 45 kilos of fuel, about all going very well. Oh, those Bridgestone tyres are very worn. There he goes away, 6.9.
They look like slicks to me. I didn't see any grooves at all. There is Rubens Barrichello, so Michael Schumacher is definitely going to be 3rd when he rejoins, and he'll be aiming to get himself out in front of Ralf Schumacher. I'm not sure that he has. His brother Ralf Schumacher was 22 seconds behind the race leader, so we'll wait and see whether Ralf is in front or behind of his brother. But this young man now leads on his home circuit. Fernando Alonso. 20,000 people have travelled from Oviedo, which is about 600 or 700 miles away from here. They, as I said before, watch out for the blue flags all around the stadium here, and listen for the whistles and the air horns, because a Spaniard is leading in Spain, and that really is a first.
It's amazing how they managed to get more fuel into Alonso's car. He stopped 2 laps before the Ferraris and he stopped for about the same amount of time, 7.2 compared to Michael's 7 originally on the first stop, and Alonso travelling quite a bit further in this stint.
Remember how we were saying, though, that Barrichello looked as though he was holding him up, and they brought Alonso in during that period. I wonder whether perhaps maybe he had a little bit of fuel left over, even.
It's possible, and well, in fact it's almost certain. And Michael Schumacher then not having a good outlap, getting held up behind his brother Ralf, who was 4th before Michael pitted, so he'll be up to 3rd place now, and that is not what Michael Schumacher needed at all. He needed a good clear run, although he had a cushion. He had a 6.4 second cushion. Barrichello pits then, Alonso easily clear out front, still not needing to come in for fuel, and playing nicely into the hands of Renault right now.
Yeah, Michael's outlap has been compromised by his brother. He's trying to go down the inside of him. Whoa! Nothing given, no quarter on either side, and Ralf Schumacher very aggressive.
Yes, and Michael tries to go around the outside, but there's no grip around there. Michael knows that well. He needs to tuck back in, but this is for position, and he can't expect any quarter from his brother, and nor has he received any. This absolutely is for position right now, although Michael will be a bit miffed, because he'll be thinking, hey, we're not really fighting each other. And Ralf locks a wheel and just somehow hooks the apex. Michael gets a run on him down into turn 7, and in the end it's a mistake by Ralf Schumacher that releases his brother.
Meanwhile, Fernando Alonso's had a blisteringly fast lap, and he really is putting down the gauntlet now. He's trying to take advantage as best he can, because the Renault mechanics are ready for him, I believe, in the pit lane. He's going to make a stop very, very soon as well, and when he rejoins, he will be very close to Michael Schumacher. We will keep a close eye on it too. Schumacher is up at the back of the circuit now. He's going through 11 and 12 as Alonso comes to a standstill.
Alonso very cautious approaching the speed line. I think he probably gave away a second there, but hopefully won't get a penalty. Another brilliant stop by the Renault team. Has he made enough? He had a 6.4 second deficit.
Schumacher's crossed the line now, so he's not in the lead, but he's a lot closer, I think, than he was before the round of pit stops. Schumacher, you see, just getting a little bit held up there as he went down the pit straight. Look how much closer Alonso is to him now, albeit he's got Ralf Schumacher between him and the race leader.
Yes, and Ralf Schumacher has ever then for position with Alonso at this time. These are the stops. These are not race positions. These are to tell you how many times the cars have stopped so far. Ralph's got to come in again soon. But Alonso then has a second chance to have a go at Michael Schumacher this afternoon. Schumacher really has got to stay on it, because Alonso is fast enough and appears to be reliable enough despite his tender years, just 21 years of age, in front of his home crowd. They're all cheering when he took the lead, the biggest crowd I've ever seen here at the Catalunya circuit. And Alonso then keeping the 5-times world champion very honest. And that's a replay where Ralf wrong-footed himself by braking too late into 5, ran wide, late on the throttle, and Michael said, okay, I'm going to take you now because I've got to get on with this.
The bad news, though, for Alonso is that Ralf Schumacher at his stop on lap 19 took on more fuel than everybody else. He's a little bit out of sequence, and he's got enough fuel for about 3 or 4 more laps. He's got to attack him now, because otherwise he's going to sit behind him for quite a long time. So this is very much on Alonso's mind. He'll be being told this by his pit crew. Got to attack him wherever you can, because otherwise he's going to hold you up.
Yes, crucial stage of the race. He's got to get past Ralf. Ralph's quite a bit slower than him, holding him up badly, has to be said. And but Alonso can't afford to make any silly mistakes. And I have to say that Williams looked very quick in a straight line, didn't it? And Wilder Jordan just led Alonso through. That is not for position. That is to be lapped. And he's saying, hey, buddy, but concentrate, Alonso. Do not get into all of that action. Do that later on when the race is finished. You don't need to get involved in all that stuff. Just get on with it. You'll lose 20, 30 yards doing all that.
You'll lose a lot more than that, because Michael Schumacher, get this, 1:20.324, the fastest lap of the race so far. He knows how important it is to put the hammer down now, because Alonso is giving him a real fight. But first of all, Alonso's got to get past Ralf Schumacher. He's refocusing now, having got past, that's a slow-moving Sauber there in the foreground. Will that affect things at all? As Ralf Schumacher goes into the corner, there's the Sauber in front of him, and you can see Alonso now on the attack again. This is up at the back end of the circuit.
Yeah, Alonso's so much quicker, look. He's really all over him. He can get on the throttle earlier, but he just can't get on it hard enough because the Williams is in the way, and he desperately needs that Williams to tuck into the pit lane. He's going to be thinking, oh no, I've got to follow him for another lap. And the Williams is too quick for him. Look at him just scampering away down the pit straight, and this is a crucial stage of the Grand Prix. He's losing 2 seconds a lap every time he's behind Michael Schumacher's brother.
It's really punishing him, Alonso, this is. And he's got somehow to get past Ralf Schumacher, as you say. He's lapping in the 122s, Michael Schumacher comfortably in the 120s. This is the decisive phase of the Grand Prix. And this is lap 40. We think that Ralf Schumacher's got another lap or two of fuel in that car. So the frustration will continue.
Frentzen is out of the race. We saw him creeping around. We think he's out of the car and out of the Grand Prix. So we've lost to Frentzen, Coulthard, Villeneuve, Trulli, Pizzoni and Raikkonen at this stage. Another locked wheel then from Ralf Schumacher. That normally indicates your front tyres are giving up grip. There's no way through on the way into Kampse. You'll be better following him and getting a slingshot out. But I don't think he's got enough straight line speed in that Renault to do anything about the Williams. Are going to have to nail him into a braking zone. And indeed, if you look at the computer, you don't see Alonso hardly featuring at all. It's all about the corners for the Renault. It certainly isn't about straight line speed, so he'll not be breezing past.
Oh!
That's the kind of place he's going to get him.
Oh, nearly!
It's such a short straight there, there's no way through really, and Ralph's not going to give that up too easily. He needs to show his bosses he's still world-class material.
That was pretty bold, wasn't it? What a place to try a pass.
But he's got so much better traction out of 11, but it's a tiny squirt into 12 and one car at a time. And I thought he was going to make it stick for a while, but he sensibly had to get out of it.
Well, the crowd's certainly enjoying it. Huge crowd here today. And Ralph's made a mistake. This is where Alonso can get him. Yes, he does. And just like in front of Michael Schumacher a moment ago, and the car running very wide there. Is that Ralph?
I think it had to be. Did he make the barrier? What on earth? Ralph got on the marbles and then went off and had an accident all by himself. Alonso was well past. And did Ralph make it as far as the barrier? There's not a lot of grip when you're flying through the air on gravel in a Formula One car. And we'll have to cut back. He may have done a little bit of a turn. There's a little access road right on the outside that'll give you just enough grip to keep you out of the wall. But Alonso released then, and Ralf Schumacher now, let's see, certainly won't have done the underneath of his car a lot of good, and he starts to disappear towards the wall. But there is a strip of grass, as I said, for the emergency vehicles, and Ralph may just have got away with that one.
Well, he is appearing on the computer, still going around the track, so currently still in third place, but I think Barrichello will be picking him off quite shortly. Race leader Michael Schumacher, lap 42. He was 7.9 seconds ahead of Alonso at the end of the previous lap, and here is the Spaniard coming down the main straight. Must feel like an eternity before he gets to the corner. Now 8.4, so he's lost half a second as Ralf Schumacher comes into the pits.
Yeah, but he didn't come in 2 or 3 laps earlier because it's kind of spoiled the race up at the front. Alonso 8.4 drift, as you say, and Ralph then. Ted is down there.
Yes, Martin, they're taking a very close look around the car as a wheel nut has actually fallen off one of the wheels. I hope Ralph doesn't run over it. No, he's missed it. No damage to the car. He was in his fuel stop window anyway, so not too much lost, apart from the off, of course.
Yes, well, he needs to work out now if he's really keeping position with Montoya, who was behind him. They were running 4th and 5th, the 2 Williams. Ralph was up there in the scrap, mostly because he'd yet to make his second stop.
So, 24 laps to go. We think that both Alonso and Michael Schumacher have to make another stop this afternoon. They've done 2 stops. They're on clear 3-stop strategies, and that would bring them in again sometime in the high 40s, low 50 laps of this 65-lap Grand Prix. And we saw at the end of the last stint how the Michelin tyre on Alonso's car, Martin, was allowing him to really eat into that lead of Schumacher. And will be very interesting to see now how the lap times go as to whether Alonso can use the Michelin tyre again to try and get a bit closer to Michael.
Alonso's just done his fastest lap of the Grand Prix on a 20.4. It takes you a good half a lap, several corners at least, to bring the tyres back in. If you've been darting all over the racetrack trying to pass somebody, you pick up a lot of dirt and little balls of discarded rubber on your tyres, and it just takes you a while to find the car again. Alonso now has found that Renault and is flying once more. He's 8.1 down. Montoya pits then from what was 4th place. You're seeing that now.
Yep, Montoya climbed up thanks to the pit stop sequence. He's been a little bit out of sequence with the others, just He ran the longest in terms of fuel of the front runners. De Mata was just 10 seconds behind him at the end of the previous lap. And there is De Mata's teammate, Toyota driver Olivier Panis. So once again, Panis retiring from the Grand Prix.
And once again, it's on the exit of the pits, James. He's just pitted. And we've seen that so often with the Toyota, haven't we, where they make a pit stop. I think it's some kind of fuel pickup problem they've been chasing their tails with all season. And the Toyota doesn't seem to like to make a service halt for some reason. Michael Schumacher leads them by 8.1 seconds from this man, Alonso.
Gewicht unterwegs war. Jetzt ist es ein direktes Duell. Mann gegen Mann, Auto gegen Auto, Boxenmannschaft gegen... Rubens Barrichello of
55 of the 65 lap Spanish Grand Prix. You're looking at third place Rubens Barrichello, but we are looking very much at this man. Fernando Alonso just took a second out of the lead of Michael Schumacher on that last lap. Here's a replay of something, probably an example of just how hard he's pushing, I would imagine, because this guy is really on it. He's 6 seconds now behind the race leader, Michael Schumacher, and he's been eating into his lead ever since that last second pit stop. We believe they both have to make another stop, so a lot more racing here this afternoon. Third at the moment, Barrichello. Fourth, De Mata. Fifth, Ralf Schumacher. Sixth is Montoya, and Ted has news for us.
Another engine failure, this time for Giancarlo Fisichella. He's just trundled past me in the pits, engine cut, black smoke coming out of the back of the car. He's now turned straight into the garage, retired. Bad luck, Fisichella.
So engine for Fisichella, then Panis stopped at the exit of a pit stop. Frentzen, suspension problem. Coulthard tripped over with Button. Button carried on. Villeneuve with engine problems. Trulli contact with Coulthard in turn 3 of the race. Pitzonia nailed by Raikkonen on the start line. Louise.
Yes, I'm with Olivier Panis, who once again has retired just after making a pit stop. What happened?
I think it's a gearbox problem, and but you know, I'm really disappointed. For me, it's enough. We really need to change something, because now it's too much to lose some point like this.
That was valuable points out of the window, wasn't it?
Yeah, because I do just 2 stops, you know, and this is really shame. All the time I do what I need to do the best, but I think we need to change many things to be better.
Thanks, Olivier.
That's the second frustrated racing driver we've talked to this afternoon. Similar levels there to Jacques Villeneuve, I would say. De Mata, his teammates, now up to 4th place as the 2 Williams are absolutely racing for 5th position at the moment, and Montoya gets the run out of turn 5 and the racing line through the easy 6 into 7. And Ralph didn't want to let go, but Montoya just had him pinned. He had the racing line.
Wow, what a great pass! The two teammates who, well, all last year we were hearing how little they liked each other. No, absolutely no love lost between them. In fact, when you watch them, they do seem to work together quite nicely. I mean, they hardly, go out for dinner together, but they certainly work together very well on the engineering side, and they're both aware that this car needs a lot of work at the moment. They're working hard to push it forward, but Montoya, that was a move.
It was good. I mean, nothing wrong there. I mean, Ralph was holding his line, and Montoya said, I'm still coming through. Do what you like, I'm coming through. Because once again, he got a slingshot out of 5, 6 we don't really count, and there then into the foot of the hill of 7, you can brake just as easily on the inside as the outside. And Ralph needs a tweak of his brake balance bar to give it some rear, because he's been constantly locking those fronts, and it tends to decay them even faster when you do that.
Another second has come out of the lead of Michael Schumacher. He's under pressure here in Barcelona from Fernando Alonso. Just 5 seconds the gap now, and we've still got another round of pit stops to go. This is getting very interesting indeed. There is the Spaniard in 2nd place. Well, he's been in the points at every Grand Prix so far this year, Fernando Alonso. Not only is he quick, he's consistent, and he's consistently eating into this lead.
2/10 that time, so it's 5.1 this time around then. Michael Schumacher turning into 1 there with a Minardi exiting the pits in front of him, and Schumacher's cleared that Minardi quickly, and there it is. So Alonso 5.1 seconds down the road and closing quite quickly. Michael really having to get back on the gas pedal. So we're seeing this consistent pattern. Ferrari goes out and is quick and fades. The Renault goes out, struggling, and comes to the driver as they move towards the pit stop zone.
Yep, a lot of it obviously has to do with the tyres. The Ferrari on the Bridgestone tyre, the Renault on the softer, we believe, of the Michelin compounds. Quick word for Cristiano De Matta as we ride on board here with Jenson Button. Now back into the top 10 finally after his incident with David Coulthard. De Matta in the Toyota is running in 4th place. It's been a strong weekend for him. And we heard Panis moaning about the fact that he wasn't going to get any points today, but Toyota still are on for some with De Matta. This is Button closing in on the back of Heidfeld in the Sauber.
Loads of grip into turn 1. It's a really satisfying corner to brake and turn into. Always seems to give you a margin in there somewhere. And then 3 is the tricky one. And we've seen so many drivers struggling around the outside and being passed up the inside, probably more than I've ever seen before, actually. Schumacher's lead down to 4.9, and Alonso clears the Minardi, I would imagine, with no time lost whatsoever. Good news then for us, this race is very much still on. Lap 49 we're on now.
It's a good race too, and a race a lot of people didn't expect to see, not least Fernando Alonso himself, who said that he did expect a bit of a mix-up with the Ferraris, possibly off the line if they got the launch control absolutely right, but he thought the Ferrari was perhaps a whisker too fast on speed, but maybe he's just inspired by this enormous crowd which has turned out to see him this afternoon. Whatever it is, Alonso is keeping cool and pushing very, very hard. The gap now under 5 seconds between himself and race leader Michael Schumacher, and we've still got 17 laps to go here in Barcelona, including a fuel stop, and Michael Schumacher, I believe, is going to make a pit stop this time. Certainly Ferrari are out for him. That's De Matta.
Used tyres going on the Toyota. Another decent stop then. De Matta came in from 4th place. Where will he be with regard to the Williams? I think they've got to stop again yet. So De Matta looking good to beat the Williams this afternoon. And in comes the race leader, Michael Schumacher.
This is going to be a crucial pit stop for the Ferrari team. They cannot afford a single mistake. Let's see how it goes for them. Great perspective from Michael's viewpoint. Seems okay.
Putting a few revs. First gear's hooked. Thumb on the button. Away he goes. Good stop. We've seen the Renault faster though, James. Renault have been doing that in 5 and 6 seconds this afternoon. So when will Alonso have to come in? He leads the Grand Prix one more time.
Well, the Renault mechanics are out in the pit lane. We saw Alonso go a couple of laps more than Michael Schumacher last time, but I think they did such a slick stop on their second pit stop that they weren't able to put any more fuel in. So this time he's only got 1 lap to try and make the difference. He did a 1:20.7, which is pretty competitive, certainly as quick as he's been going at any stage in the Grand Prix. But he did have a 4.5 second margin to try and close up, so it's really difficult to see, unless Michael Schumacher hits a little bit of traffic, how Alonso can make the difference just on 1 single lap.
Alonso beginning to throw the car into the corners now just to get some front grip. think his front tyres are just fading away a little bit. He's having to give it an armful of look to get it in, and he's not oversteering when it happens. So we know that this must be a Renault pit stop for Alonso, because Trulli is out of the Grand Prix. Through turn 12, then he'll flick right, and now he's really got to attack that speed line in that corner. That's all racetrack time now. You can't afford to be too cautious, and once again, Michael Schumacher attacked that speed line much harder than the young Spaniard. Ted.
Scrub Michelin's ready for Fernando Alonso. The crowd explode with applause as he comes in. He's looking at about 7 seconds. It's slightly longer than his last stop. No problems on it. Now he's away. Good stop.
Very good stop indeed. Michael Schumacher is coming down the start-finish straight. He regains the lead. Rubens Barrichello is in the pits from 3rd place for Ferrari. But this Grand Prix really is between two men, Fernando Alonso and Michael Schumacher. They've both led the Grand Prix twice each. They're the only people to have led this afternoon. And can Alonso, in the remaining 14 laps of this Grand Prix, push his car, push himself and the whole crowd beyond the limit to try and do something about the 5-time world champion?
Michael Schumacher, age 34, with 183 starts under his right foot. And Alonso, 21 years old, and this is his 21st Grand Prix of his career. And he surely has got a chance of cruising up to the back of that Ferrari. I'm quite sure where he's going to pass it, though. He doesn't have enough straight line speed. He's certainly got a good front end on the car, good under brakes. But last time we were in this sector where they were just fresh out of the pit, Michael had the extra speed.
Big puff of dust on the outside of the corner as Alonso exited that last bend, and he's pushing very, very hard indeed. Tell us what you see in this young man. Say 21 years old, already twice on the podium. What do you see?
I see a lot of people rushing around tomorrow morning, seeing how watertight his contract is, and from both aspects, because he's certainly been on it at every Grand Prix, every style of racetrack, and showing amazing maturity, really. I don't think he's got as fast a car underneath him as Michael Schumacher this afternoon, but there's not a lot in it, is there? And it has to be said, and I just think he's doing a sterling job.
Well, he's 6 seconds behind the race leader, who just did the fastest lap of the afternoon. You can see how hard Michael Schumacher is pushing. This is going to be a very interesting showdown here in Barcelona. He's leading by 6 seconds, Michael Schumacher over Alonso. Barrichello 3rd, Montoya 4th, Ralf Schumacher 5th, and Cristiano de Matter in Toyota still 6th.
Ein 10er und 0er für Räikkönen. Die WM schiebt sich zusammen. Ausfall für eventuell Siege mitzureden. Also Renault jetzt mit ein bisschen mehr Leistung und einem Überflieger.
11 laps to go then at Barcelona in Spain. Fernando Alonso is still chasing down Michael Schumacher. The gap at the moment about 6.5 seconds. They're lapping at the same sort of pace at the moment, so Michael Schumacher is not really giving anything away to the Spaniard, although the crowd who've come here to see something great today from this young man would dearly love to see him get on terms. And he's only got 11 laps in which to do it. Rubens Barrichello is third. Juan Montoya fourth, Ralf Schumacher fifth, Cristiano de Mata sixth. Mark Webber in the Jaguar is at the moment in a points-paying position in 7th place, and that would be a great boost to the Jaguar team after the strong start they've had to the season, certainly as far as Webber's car is concerned. Alonso just lapping one of the Minardis again there. And also on for a point at the moment is Ralf Furman in the Jordan, so he's going very strongly. But the bad news for him is he's got Nick Heidfeld and Jenson Button right behind him on the racetrack. And Button, after his mishap with Coulthard, will be very keen to at least salvage 1 point this afternoon. But I think the $10 million question here is, can Alonso do anything about Michael Schumacher? And certainly since that third and final pit stop, Michael Schumacher seems to have the car under him a little bit more, doesn't he?
Well, it's the same. We've seen the same pattern. Pit stop, Ferrari goes faster. Towards the end of the stint, it's the Renault that's going faster. But at the moment, Michael appears to have it under control. Alonso's suddenly got to come back at him right now if he's going to win this Grand Prix. Barrichello's also on the move, but he's too far behind. He's a dozen seconds behind second-place man Alonso. The Williams, bit out to sea. They're 40 and 50 seconds. Montoya, Ralf Schumacher, 4th and 5th. Behind the leader, de Mata could score Toyota's first point of the season this afternoon. He's 6th. Webber could score Jaguar's first point of the season. He's 7th, and Furman still in that final points-paying position and pulling away now from Heidfeld and Button by just over 1.6 seconds. So, and Heidfeld pits too, so Furman now has got the attention of fellow countryman Button behind him, and they're going to fight over the last World Championship point this afternoon, barring any reliability issues with the cars in front of them.
Yes, indeed. Michael Schumacher completes lap 55 of this 65-lap Grand Prix. The gap you see was 8 seconds last time round. Has Alonso been able to do anything this time? No, in fact, he gave away just a little bit. So, as Martin said, the pattern we've seen so far of the Ferrari being a little bit quicker in the early part of the stint is being repeated, but that should set us up for quite an exciting finish if the pattern is repeated, where the Renault gets quicker towards the end of the stint. This is de Mata. He's got the Jordan of Furman in front of him, who I guess is being lapped.
Yes, it is.
Yes, it is. And Ralf Schumacher in front of him, who is in 5th place. So de Mata very keen to get that Jordan out of the way, because he would deal like a piece of 4th place. And we've seen Ralf Schumacher, as Furman struggles to keep the car under him there, we've seen Ralf Schumacher struggling a little bit under pressure this afternoon. So if de Mata can get there, he might be able to nick 4th.
Absolutely. I wonder if the Williams have got to stop again yet, but they've so far stopped twice this afternoon. Furman's struggling, and he's got Jenson Button coming up closely behind him as well. So Furman really needs to keep it on the island and keep pushing on. De Mata, unfortunately, when you're a lap runner and you're lapping others, you just don't seem to get the same help from the blue flags, and it's so frustrating when you're actually having a decent day, even though it's down in 5th and 6th. It's you seem to be ignored by everybody, especially the men hanging out the blue flags. Ted.
Yes, talking of blue flags, Martin, Heidfeld ignored one and all of them. You saw him going to the pits. That's what he was doing, serving a drive-through penalty for ignoring those blue flags.
Well, spoiled his afternoon, then took him out of contention. He was right behind Furman for 8th place, and that's taken him out of a chance of some a World Championship point at least. So it's all down to Furman and Button then, and they're just 0.8 of a second apart. Good British scrap going on there.
Yeah, we haven't really seen it, but it is a great British scrap going on. We saw Furman a moment ago struggling to keep de Mata behind him, or rather to get out of the way of de Mata because he was being lapped, but just behind them would have been Jenson Button. Here we are. So this is just up the road then from that Furman-Button scrap, and it looks like de Mata has a faster car, doesn't it? Once again, that Williams seems to be struggling through the corners. It just doesn't seem to want to turn into the corners, does it?
No, he's not had a good setup, Ralph. And de Mata, we've seen that Toyota well balanced all through free practice, and really It's not too shabby in a straight line either, so if we can get a look at Ralph, he's not really close enough now. And look at the speed of that Williams as he accelerates out of the corner. Now you're hitting the aerodynamic zone, and now you're picking up the slipstream, and he's going to be brave if he has a go from there, because it would just take him straight into the gravel trap. Not close enough, but it was worth a little jink just to catch the guy and make him look in his mirrors instead of his braking point.
Great onboard action here at Barcelona with Cristiano De Mata. I said yesterday that Emerson Fittipaldi, 2 times world champion back in the 1970s, was singing the praises of De Mata. He was saying he reckons he's the most talented Brazilian in Formula 1 today. So I'm sure Rubens would have a thing or two to say about that, but certainly De Mata is having a strong afternoon here. And just behind them, you saw that battle between Furman and Button. Hopefully we'll see a bit more of that too in a moment. But we're focusing our attention on this battle here for 5th place between Ralf Schumacher and De Mata, and Ralf Schumacher again struggling.
He is indeed. As the exit of the corners, he just can't get on the throttle early enough. And, it's going to be so. The braking distance, you brake about 80 metres before that next corner. So if you're going to be a car length better, and Ralph's made another mistake, locked his wheel, covers his line, but really struggling to slow that Williams down today. And De Mata will take some satisfaction from that. This is a fight for 5th place at the moment. Montoya, though, is 20 seconds down the road. So De Mata will dearly like to get through there. Past the Williams, that'll be something.
Yep, no doubt the Williams engineers watching this with us at Grove in Oxfordshire will be looking at these onboard pictures, looking at the back of their car, and they'll be bringing this up tomorrow in their technical meetings. How can we make this car go faster than this?
Right, Ralph's had to go protective all the way into turn 1. He's going to be slow on the way out of 2. And can De Mata make anything of that? He'll get a run towards 3 by coming, 4 rather, coming over the inside. Really didn't make as much of that. And all the time, Ralph now feeling the need to go defensive so he can brake a bit earlier and try not to lock those front tyres, as he has been doing so much through this Grand Prix. And behind them, Furman then fending off Jenson Button, who stopped for a new wing and has had a bit of a torrid afternoon. They're fighting over 8th place, and remember, that means a World Championship point now.
Yeah, 2 Brits fighting for the final point. Whichever one of them gets it, with the only British point scorer this afternoon, because Coulthard is out of the race after contact, and Justin Wilson is down in 11th place in the Minardi, but still a lot of racing to go here. This is lap 59 of 65. 2 great scraps then. At the front, just to bring you up to date, Michael Schumacher now just under 10 seconds clear of Fernando Alonso, so the sweet spot, if you like, for the Michelin tyre on that Renault has not happened yet, and Michael Schumacher, just when he needed it most, I suppose, in the closing stages of the Grand Prix, has had the package working very, very well underneath him. And he looks pretty comfortable now at the front. But look at De Mata, he's getting very close to the back of Ralf Schumacher then into turn 1. We're not seeing this, we're looking at Michael Schumacher, but I reckon De Mata and Ralf Schumacher are very close together.
Yes, the race leader about to come up behind 2 enormous scraps. And we don't know if De Mata remotely had a chance to get through. We can't see it, of course. It won't show up on the computer until they're down to the end of T1, and they've gone through that now. And at the moment, it seems De Mata still behind Ralf Schumacher. Yes, indeed, he is. So that then is Michael Schumacher. It's great news, isn't it, for the season as a whole, that the Ferrari hasn't turned up and just blown this lot away and lapped them all, because we've seen that in the past. That is such good news, to be honest, that we look like we've got some serious racing coming all through the season.
Yeah, the championship certainly looks pretty open at the moment. Whatever happens here, Kimi Raikkonen will be leading it, going away from this Grand Prix, because he was 14 points ahead of Michael Schumacher going into the Grand Prix. Bit of a lock-up there from Ralf Schumacher. And the pressure certainly is on Ferrari here, because for the last 4 years, the new Ferrari has always won on its debut, and that's something to live up to, isn't it, for this new car? It might be beautiful, but as Chris Dyer said to you on the grid, it's only beautiful if it wins.
Well, I suspect it's about to look extremely beautiful then, but it's not looking like a 1-2 today, is it? Thanks to Renault of Alonso. The lead down to 9.5 seconds. Michael beginning now then, of course, to just back off a little bit. And I think Alonso knows it's going to be P2 for him this afternoon. But splitting the Ferraris, no mean task.
Well, it's not going to slow Alonso down if he is thinking along those lines. 121.3 his last lap. He's still pushing very, very hard indeed, with 5 laps remaining here at Barcelona. It's this track over the years, Martin, has had a bit of a reputation for producing some slightly dull and predictable races, because they test here so much, and not too many people make mistakes, but we've seen a few mistakes, but we've also seen some really close racing here this afternoon.
We have, and most of the cars that have dropped out, or many of the cars that have dropped out, have tripped over each other or run into the back or whatever. And I have to say I'm super impressed by the Grand Prix teams that they've reacted to these new regulations so quickly. And instead of pulling them apart all through Saturday night and putting them together, getting them out in the warm-up, pulling them apart again, they've still managed to keep, I think, even better reliability, actually, with less time to work on them. And I do think the teams have responded very, very well to that. So now then, Ralf Schumacher still fending off De Matter, and he's got his brother, race leader Michael Schumacher, coming up to lap them. And you can, despite it being a blue flag situation and you're having to get out of the way, there is a way of letting them ease past and losing less time. And De Matter's got to find a way of doing that, and then hanging onto the back of Schumacher and hoping he gets pulled through along with him.
Well, he's hurdled De Matter so far. Now he's just got to worry about his brother Ralf. Shows you how much Ralf Schumacher's lost, doesn't it, in the second half of the race? But at one point, these two, after a pit stop of Michael's, were actually battling for position on the racetrack. Okay, you take out Ralf making a pit stop of 20-odd seconds out of the race. He's lost a whole minute somewhere in this Grand Prix.
Yes, indeed. De Matter did exactly what I was talking about. He let Michael through going down the straight, and so you lose the least time, but he needed to hook right up on his gearbox then, but at least he's got to run on the Williams, but not enough space to do anything with it. But you've got to let the leader ease past you and then just grab his gearbox and try and follow him through. And once again, De Matter having a look into Kampse, but that's, unless you're absolutely side by side, not a prayer getting through there.
That would be very, very brave indeed if you tried to do it through Kampse. 125-mile-an-hour corner, and they're pulling just over 3G as they go through there as well, so you have to have your wits about you trying to go passing someone there. But again, you see the Williams struggling, and the Toyota's able to close up, but then there's nowhere really for him to get past.
Ralph's got a big imbalance problem, and I don't know, I can't believe his corner weights would be out. They would have been set up, but unless he's, well, of course he went off the road, didn't he, as well, bouncing off the road. But it's so unusual to see the latest Formula One cars with, and look, De Matter's really got a run on him this time. Ralf struggling more and more, covers the line. De Matter, I think, could have braked a bit later and tried to go down the outside there, but something wrong with that Williams in the setup, and I think bouncing across the gravel didn't help it, because normally if you keep locking the same left front, it means you've got a setup problem of some kind.
3 laps to go then, and Alonso is back to within 5.5 seconds of Michael Schumacher at the front, but he's got to get past these two. And De Matter trying around the outside, is he? No, once again you see the defensive line from Ralf Schumacher. He really has perfected that this afternoon. He got it wrong with Montoya, he got it wrong with Alonso and his brother Michael when he was trying to fend them off, but he's got it right this time, and De Matter cannot find a way through. There's Furman, he's still in 8th place, and Button dropping back a little bit from him now as the race leaders have come through to lap them, so Button's dropped back a long way actually. Big lock up there for Ralf Schumacher.
Alonso coming through the pack then, as you say, Ralf somehow keeping it together. They long filled the Williams at the second stop, because they were on a 3-stopper in the early part of this race. They've got 8.8 seconds worth of fuel in the pair of them, so that's what's enabled Montoya and Ralf Schumacher to get to the end of the Grand Prix and become one of the few 2-stoppers, in fact the only 2-stoppers that are currently still running, the 2 Williams. They've changed strategy during the Grand Prix, I believe, and that's enabled them to stay ahead of the Toyota of De Matter. We saw the Williams and the Toyota side by side there, right in the distance of that onboard camera of Alonso's. I wonder if there's been a change for position there. You can see the 2 of them. Has there been? No. Ralf is still ahead of De Matter. Now Alonso going past De Matter, lets him through straight away. That was very nice of De Matter. And now he's got to worry about Ralf Schumacher. The gap now to Michael Schumacher is 6 seconds for Alonso. There's only a couple of laps to go though. He needs to pull the same trick again now. He needs to hook up behind Alonso and wait for Ralf to have to jump out of the way. If they pass 3 blue flags, they can start getting penalised. Ralf will be all too aware of that. And does he let him through? No, he doesn't let him through on the way up to Kampse. Don't blame him in a way. Now he should just pull out of the way, give him the racing line, and he doesn't do that either. Ralf holding his ground, surely passing lots and lots of blue flags. And once again, Alonso with his hand out of the cockpit going, hey, get out of my way. And right to feel aggrieved, but wrong to try and demonstrate it. You can't see the driver behind you. You can't see what he's doing with his hands. There's absolutely no point in putting them out.
I think it just shows what a mission Alonso feels he's on here this afternoon, and also how calm he must feel in the car that he can take his hand off the steering wheel for such a long time.
Look over that crest. How close is the Toyota this time? And Ralph going very defensive very early. That's not the car we want to see. That is what we want to see. And once again, Ralph with the widest Formula One car in Spain this afternoon.
Last lap then. 7 seconds the gap between Michael Schumacher and Fernando Alonso. That should be enough, but what about these two? This is still the battle ongoing for 5th place. Juan Montoya looks set for 4th, Barrichello for 3rd, Alonso for 2nd, and Michael Schumacher for the win on the maiden outing of the new Ferrari. But what about Ralf Schumacher and D'Amato? Will something happen there? We've cut away from that scrap, unfortunately, to look at the race leader on his final tour. He's just a few corners away now from the checkered flag. And it's been a bit more stressful afternoon than he imagined, I think, going into this Grand Prix. This guy has given him a hard time. He came here boosted by the crowd. He said, this is a special day for me, whatever happens here this afternoon. I'm going to give it large, push hard. On board then with the hero of the day as far as Spain is concerned, that's for sure. But as far as Italy and Ferrari are concerned, there is only eyes for this one man. Michael Schumacher wins on the debut of the new Ferrari, his 2nd Grand Prix victory in succession. And Spain stands on its feet to salute. A truly remarkable drive from Fernando Alonso, his 3rd podium of the season. Those are the blue flags of his hometown of Oviedo. 20,000 people have travelled here to see him today. They've seen him take on Michael Schumacher. It wasn't quite an even fight, but what a performance by both of these men, really, under a lot of pressure.
Yes, you have to say Michael really did have it covered, didn't he? Rubens couldn't keep up in the 2nd car. Alonso, really superb performance, and comfortably, easily, my driver of the day, Fernando Alonso. And he just was there all afternoon, barely made a mistake. I think we saw him lock a brake once in the entire 65 laps, just absolutely on it. Fantastic job from Alonso. Michael Schumacher, though, he'll get out of the car. I don't think he'll look too sweaty, James, even though Alonso kept him very honest.
No, indeed. Certainly all very fit. The Renault guys, quite rightly, I think, extremely happy with their afternoon's work. It's been a terrific start to the season for the Renault team. So Michael Schumacher the winner, Alonso 2nd, Barrichello 3rd. There he is, just pulling alongside to congratulate Alonso. Montoya 4th, 5th Ralf Schumacher, who held on from D'Amato, who finished 6th. Webber 7th for Jaguar, their first points of the 2003 season. And Furman, that'll do a huge amount for his confidence in the Jordan. He finishes in 8th place, just ahead of Jenson Button. Podium coming up next.
Der heute leer ausgegangen ist, den Grand Prix bereits nach 8 Metern beenden musste im Heck von Antonio Pizzoni. Generation stand auf dem Plakat. Aber noch hat der Meister alles im Griff.
It's been a really entertaining afternoon. The entertainment provided largely by these two gentlemen. Fernando Alonso here putting the steering wheel back into his car, and Michael Schumacher, the race winner. Alonso second and Barrichello third. But we've had close racing really throughout the field, and it really has been a good afternoon's Formula One. Congratulations there from Barrichello to Alonso. He's one of them now, isn't he, Alonso? He's a front runner, official.
Yeah, interesting to see Michael get out of his car, and it was a fairly cautious and not too loving pat that he gave young Alonso. He wasn't going to feed his confidence any more than he had to. Michael obviously pretty pleased with himself this afternoon too. On the bounce then for Michael Schumacher, and really homing in on that World Championship leader Kimi Raikkonen.
Yep, just 4 points in it now at the top of the driver's standings. Alonso, though, holding on to Michael Schumacher as well. There you can see the constructors' standings. McLaren not scoring today, neither of their cars making it to the finish, and that's allowed Ferrari to take a big bite out of their lead. So Schumacher's 66th Grand Prix win, quite incredible. The nearest man to him, Alain Prost, on 51. He continues to set records, but he's definitely got his eye on Alonso, hasn't he?
Yes, he's been talking about him for a while, hasn't he? But I think that's one of the great things of this season for me. I mean, it's good to see Michael back on form, and quite clearly made a few mistakes in the first few Grand Prix. So I think all the old hands are definitely on form this year. And then we've got Raikkonen and Alonso, the new kids in town, really on it, consistently on it as well. And of course Webber too, putting in some strong performances, although not necessarily today. I think Furman too, as this last couple of races has proven quite a good point behind at the wheel of that Jordan. But we're really shaping up, I think, for the old hands versus the new guns all through the season. They're all on it.
Yeah, quick word for Cristiano D'Amato. I think he drove really well today, didn't he, in the Toyota? They needed some points. Both them and Jaguar off the mark today. D'Amato 6th, and it could well have been 5th if he could have just got past Ralf Schumacher in the closing stages. Williams will be quite pleased, I think, 4th and 5th, considering how slow they were through practice on Friday and Saturday. But there will be a lot of debriefing going on at Williams factory, I think.
Yeah, Williams haven't won a race for over a year now, and I think 4th and 5th, I mean, in a way, I agree with you, James, it's a bit of a save for the afternoon for them, but that's not where they anticipated being, I'm sure. It's Renault are doing the job of chasing Ferrari that we anticipated Williams would do until we see the new McLaren. Yes, and the Montoya then over a minute behind Michael Schumacher, and Schumi was cruising in the last few laps.
Yeah, that's a long, long way, a minute. The customary jump on the podium. A much happier Michael Schumacher this time round. And Alonso, he's made up with himself, isn't he? Followed by the Italian, a double act we're becoming very familiar with in Formula One.
supreme speed and reliability from the new Ferrari then, and young Alonso certainly made the afternoon for me. I think immense is the word they use at the moment.
Yes, you can see his jocularity on the podium. He's an interesting character, very calm, as Michael Schumacher collects the winner's trophy. Very calm, but at the same time, he's a bit of a joker as well. He's a good sense of humour. He knows how to let off steam. Good balance, really.
Speaks better English than Roberto Carlos as well, that's for sure. But Michael started talking to the Ross Brawn there, taking the Constructors' Trophy. Michael started talking to the press again and doing TV interviews. He's chirpy, bouncy, doing his normal leap on the podium.
Big response then. It's for all of you. It's for all of you, says Fernando.
We're a long way up here, James. They look like ants standing down there, don't they? We're right in the top of that new grandstand on the pit straight, looking down on this procedure. Rubens, I think he'll be disappointed with that. 18 seconds behind Michael Schumacher, third place. He wanted better than that.
So the customary champagne begins. Ross Brawn looks like he's going to get a bit of a toasting rather. Well, Ferrari said, a car is only beautiful when it wins. From the looks of things, this thing is a Picasso, but Alonso today has given them both something to think about.
Ole Fernando, very much on everyone's lips around the circuit to Catalonia. A brilliant race from Fernando Alonso. For Michael Schumacher, his 5th Spanish Grand Prix victory. Still to come in our post-race show. We hope to have a chat to the top 3 in the press conference. There's the expert views of Tony Jardine. We'll respond to your texts as well. We will be right back.
Ja, der 4. Stopp, der ominöse 4. Stopp, den wir nicht verstanden haben, das war eine Durchfahrt.
Congratulations to our first 3 finishers in the Marlboro Spanish Grand Prix. In third place to Rubens Barrichello for Ferrari, second Fernando Alonso for Renault, and Michael Schumacher, first time out winner in the new Ferrari. Michael, a lot of pressure there from Fernando in the end. It perhaps wasn't as easy as it looked.
No, certainly not. But honestly, it wasn't a surprise. By looking and studying the sort of lap times they were doing all weekend, I was thinking that that's going to be a tough race. And they didn't do the times on Friday by just luck. I mean, Jarno, for example, and Fernando then yesterday in qualifying. So I was expecting a very tough fight, and though it was, we sort of have to say that we can be lucky to be here with a new car, because I think with the old car we wouldn't have been able to make it, and this new car is something very special. I mean, it works so beautiful and so fine. I mean, I am so much in love with this car. I mean, it's just fantastic what they have done.
There was a moment just before your second stop when it was very close between you and Fernando in terms of lap time. Were you leaving margin then, or was that indicative of how close the race was?
I think in terms of tyre performance, it looked like that we had the better beginning, and then towards the end my tyres dropped off a little bit more than theirs. So we were quicker initially, then we lost out a little bit towards the end of the stints. I guess that was the sort of reason. Then traffic was at one point a little bit difficult. I lost quite a bit of time in the early part, but it in the end worked out. And I have to say, in the end, the longer we were on the circuit, the better it was for our tyres and for the car. We were then more and more consistent, and I was even at the end able to sort of pull away.
Fernando, a great race, a brilliant reception you received there. Before we get on to that, can you tell us what it looked like between those two Ferrari drivers into the first corner?
It was a special moment. Our launch control is very good, obviously one of the best, or the best in Formula One. And I tried to overtake Rubens. I did at the beginning, but then he chose the outside line, and they were very close to touch each other, and I was ready to pass both of them, but at the end it was not possible. First stint I tried to fight with Rubens, but it was difficult to fight with him and to pass him. And then after the first pit stop, I was doing my race with alone, Michael in front, Rubens behind, but always a significant gap between the three drivers, and was a quite easy race, always pushing, but not really big pressure.
But you did actually pass Rubens in those laps just after your first pit stop, right?
Yes, I passed Rubens, and at the beginning, as Michael said, I think the Ferrari was quicker than us. He caught me a little bit in the first 3 or 4 laps, and then with a little bit of traffic and everything, I was lucky in that moment. Rubens had a little bit more than me, and I was able to put a gap between me and him and take that gap until the end of the race.
Rubens, can you talk us through that first corner, and also obviously a summary of your race?
Well, I mean, I think I never been so close to Michael. I think we were closer than this probably, and but it was a good first corner actually, because I had to try to overtake Fernando, and I saw that that Michael chose the inside line to protect his line, so I was braking on the right tarmac, and I just said I give it a go. I mean, I did actually went through a little bit in front, but we were too close. I had to give away a little bit, and then I went on the grass, so therefore I couldn't keep the line. But that shows how much we respect each other and how much we have fun together, and it's really good to actually put the new car on the podium right now.
How was the car for the rest of the race?
I think in terms of setup, my car was brilliant for the first 5 laps of the tire, if not the best car out there. But for some reason I couldn't keep the pace going for the stints, and my last 5 laps of the tire, I was a little bit in trouble in terms of times, and there was one